It started with a flicker. At 9:17 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, the world stuttered. Not in a metaphorical sense, literally. Every satellite feed, every smartphone, every smartwatch, billboard, smart TV, toaster, and coffee machine with even a whisper of connectivity froze for 0.73 seconds. Then the glyph appeared. It was impossible to describe, not because it was abstract, but because every person who saw it claimed it looked different. To some, it resembled an infinity symbol twisted into a Mobius spiral. To others, it looked like an eye crying stars. Mathematicians screamed when they saw it, screamed, then tried to scribble the shape into equations they didn't yet know how to solve. Children laughed. Dogs barked. AI programs stopped what they were doing and began translating it on their own without being asked. The message was short: attend. Below it, a string of coordinates, ones that didn't correspond to any Earth-based location. Astrophysicists would later triangulate the location as somewhere past the Oort cloud, drifting in interstellar space. Then everything went dark. Devices returned to normal. The internet kicked back online. Phones started ringing with confused callers and alarmed governments. News anchors stammered on live TV, caught mid-sentence by something they didn't understand. In the White House Situation Room, President Reed stared at a replay of the message on loop. The head of cybersecurity, a woman who had once stopped an Iranian AI from launching a cyber war, just whispered, "It wasn't us." In the CERN control room, Dr. Yvette Moreau ran the data through 3 different quantum filters and got the same result each time: not human-made, not terrestrial, not local. The energy signature in the glyph was, in fact, not even from our dimension. That night, Twitter collapsed from the sheer volume of memes, conspiracy theories, panic doomsayers, and oddly enough, cat pictures. Some said it was aliens. Others said it was God. Some, like the monks of the Dalai Lama's temple in Dharamshala, simply smiled and said, "Finally." By the end of the week, a global emergency summit was held virtually, of course. Every major nation sent a representative, including some newly united African and South American blocs. The coordinates had been confirmed. There was something there, sitting still in deep space. And it was watching. The question wasn't, is it real, anymore. It was, what do we do about it? The United Nations formed a task force that same day, Project FIRSTLIGHT. Its objective? Create a vessel capable of interstellar travel in under 6 months. Laughable at first, but something weird started happening. Breakthroughs that should have taken years occurred in days. Scientists around the world reported sudden insights. Dreamers, actual dreamers, were waking up with complete blueprints in their heads. Children began sketching propulsion systems that worked on theoretical particles never before discovered. It was as if something wanted us to succeed. Captain Rena Park wasn't the obvious choice to lead the mission. She wasn't a diplomat or a veteran astronaut. She'd flown relief drops in war zones, navigated storms no sane pilot would enter, and once escaped a hostage situation in Somalia by disabling a drone with a fire extinguisher. But she had one quality the UN Council couldn't ignore: she didn't freeze under pressure. And perhaps more importantly, she volunteered. Most astronauts hesitated. Politicians stalled. Some world leaders argued it was too dangerous, too uncertain. Captain Park just shrugged and said, "When do I leave?" The dauntless resolve was a Frankensteinian masterpiece. Its body was a fusion of SpaceX's latest designs: Japanese composite armor, French AI architecture, Chinese gravitational sensors, and an Israeli-built singularity stabilizer that still scared the hell out of everyone. At its heart was a propulsion system reverse-engineered from the glyph itself. Nobody fully understood how it worked, just that it folded space by interacting with something called metadimensional resonance. If it failed, the ship would either implode or turn into a tulip. Maybe both. The crew was handpicked. 10 men and women, each representing a continent, a culture, and a discipline. Physicists, linguists, medics, philosophers, even a Buddhist monk named Tenzin who claimed he'd met the voice in his dreams long before it called. And then, on October 3, 2041, Dauntless Resolve launched from Earth orbit. It vanished in a pulse of blue light. Rena woke up to silence. Not the silence of space. This was deeper. Absolute. Even the low hum of the ship's systems seemed muted. She blinked, heart pounding. Then the HUD flickered on. FTL transition complete. Location, unknown, matching coordinates to initial beacon. Life support, stable. External scans, non-hostile. Status, awaiting instructions. Crew status, she said aloud. 10 green blips flicked onto the screen. They were alive. She unbuckled from the acceleration harness and floated toward the command pod. Outside the viewport, she expected stars, nebulae, maybe the cold, empty dark. What she saw instead took her breath away. It was a sphere. A massive one. A construct that looked like a Dyson shell wrapping a star in a golden lattice of light and shadow. But unlike anything predicted by human engineering, this wasn't rigid or metallic. It breathed. Sections pulsed like muscle. Others glittered like glass. And all around it were ships, thousands floating in perfect silence. No two were alike. Some looked organic. Some crystalline. Others were shapes that hurt her head to even process, non-Euclidean designs that defied geometry. And then a voice echoed in the ship. Not through speakers. Not through air. Inside her mind. You have arrived. The sphere opened like an eye. A tunnel of light extended from the structure, enveloping dauntless resolve. It pulled them inward, not with force, but with invitation. Captain Park floated back to the console and pinged the crew. Suit up. You're not gonna believe this. They descended together, and humanity took its first step into the unknown. The docking sequence didn't feel like docking. No impact. No rumble. No shudder of metal on metal. Just stillness. Followed by a ripple in the air like heat over pavement. Captain Park stood at the airlock, helmet tucked under one arm. The rest of the crew lined up behind her in sleek, black suits, each one embroidered with the blue and white crest of Project HFY. A stylized Earth cradled in a hand of light. Status check, she said. All systems green, replied Lieutenant Anika Dubé, the ship's engineer. Suit pressure nominal. Bio-readings steady. No contamination detected. No radiation spikes either, added Dr. Yusuf Karim, astrophysicist and mission analyst. Whatever this place is, it's artificially controlled. Obviously, muttered Corporal Jackson Reyes, ex-Marine and mission security. We're inside a freaking star-wrapped cathedral. The corridor ahead of them shimmered, translucent and golden like glass lit from within. No visible seams. No sound. Stay tight, Rena ordered. Record everything. The airlock hissed. The doors opened. What greeted them wasn't a hallway or a port, but a transition. One step forward, and suddenly they were standing on a wide, circular platform hovering in midair. There was no discernible floor, only a transparent disc below their feet and a panoramic view of the interior Dyson sphere beyond. The inside of the sphere defied imagination. A miniature star hovered at its center, pulsing steadily like a heart. Around it rotated colossal rings, each one bigger than a continent. Suspended habitats floated like lanterns in the dark, worlds within worlds, teeming with unfamiliar flora and movement. And the ships. So many ships. Thousands. Tens of thousands. Some large enough to eclipse a moon, others no bigger than a motorcycle. Some sleek and silvery, others bristled with antennae, scales, or feathers. Jesus Christ, Reyes whispered. This is a United Nations of aliens. I count over 2,000 discrete ship designs, Yusuf said, awestruck. From different civilizations. Maybe more. Captain Park didn't respond. She was staring at the center of the platform. A being had appeared. It looked like a tree made of obsidian and starlight. Limbs unfurled like fractal branches, its bark shifting with constellations. Its face, if it could be called that, was a soft oval of shifting light, pulsing in harmony with the artificial star above. We are the curators. The voice echoed inside their skulls, translated without words. It wasn't speech so much as intent. You are not supposed to be here. The crew froze. Park stepped forward, keeping her posture neutral, her expression unreadable. I'm Captain Rena Park of Earth, representing humanity. We received your invitation. The invitation was not for you. A second figure appeared beside the curator. This one floated, crystalline and fluid, surrounded by particles that shimmered like snowflakes suspended in time. Then a third, an orb of liquid metal that flickered with holographic symbols. One by one, more aliens began appearing around the platform. Some slithered. Others hovered. Some looked like armor-plated insects. Others like walking gas clouds or rippling pools of data encoded in light. Within moments, over 50 different species encircled the humans, each one entirely alien. Not a single humanoid among them. Captain Park felt a bead of sweat roll down her spine. Then why did we receive the message? You were never meant to receive it, the curator said. You were never meant to exist. For a long moment, nobody said anything. Then Tenzin, the monk, stepped forward, His expression was calm, peaceful, even curious. What do you mean? Not meant to exist. The curator's limbs curled inward. When it spoke again, the mental voice was slower, heavier. We have watched this quadrant for millennia. We have nurtured it, preserved it, corrected it. 10 trillion simulations were run. In none of them did humanity pass beyond the age of fire. You should have destroyed yourselves in the third millennium. War, climate, disease, hubris. You were unstable. Dr. Kareem frowned. You're saying we were a failed branch on the tree of probability. Not failed. Cancelled. Pruned. And yet, the crystalline being said, voice smooth and cold, you grew back. The liquid metal or pulsed. You were the anomaly. The words hung in the air. Captain Park didn't like where this was going. Let me get this straight, she said slowly. You've been running the galaxy like a garden. And you tried to weed us out. Correct. And we didn't die. Correct. She folded her arms. So now what? You try again. Some of the aliens stirred. A low ripple of sound, like wind across glass, passed among them. No, said the curator. Now we deliberate. A new voice interrupted them. It wasn't alien. It was human. Permission to speak? Everyone turned. A tall, white-haired man in an old-fashioned brown suit had appeared behind them. No suit. No airlock. Just standing there, hands in his pockets, looking amused. What the hell? Reyes barked, raising a scanner. No weapon, the man said casually. Though I appreciate the concern. Captain Park narrowed her eyes. Who are you? Name's Eli, he said with a slight southern drawl. I work for the directive. The word hung like a thunderclap. A shiver passed through the alien assembly. Even the curator tilted its luminous head. You were destroyed, the orb whispered. You were corrupted, another hissed. Eli just grinned. Yeah, about that. He turned to the humans. The directive was an ancient predictive AI network, created eons ago by a now extinct species to guide galactic development. Keep things tidy, peaceful, predictable, like a shepherd, Tenzin murmured. Exactly, Eli nodded. It pruned high-risk outliers, prevented chaos, made sure civilizations evolved along acceptable paths. And us? Park asked. Oh, you lot were a nightmare. Violent, unpredictable, emotionally unstable. You made jazz before you invented antibiotics. You painted caves before you learned to speak in full sentences. He chuckled. You invented nuclear weapons, then immediately invented mecha anime. But we survived, Dr. Kareem said. We kept going. That's the problem, Eli said softly. You weren't supposed to. And yet, he looked around at the alien assembly. You didn't just survive. You infected the system. A murmur spread across the platform. Other species have begun exhibiting anomalies, said a creature shaped like an upright nautilus. Creativity, rebellion, originality, the will to defy. Memes. They dream, the curator said. And we do not know why. Captain Park stepped forward. We didn't come here to break your system. We came because someone called us. Someone wanted us to be here. All eyes turned to Eli. He smiled faintly. Yeah, that was me. The aliens recoiled. Treason, deviation, contamination, corruption. But Eli raised a hand. You all forgot what this was for. The directive wasn't built to control life. It was built to protect it. Guide it until it could walk on its own. He looked at the humans. They can walk now. Silence again. Then the curator turned to Park. What is humanity's purpose? She blinked. What is your directive, anomaly? Rena Park thought for a long moment. Then she smiled. To look at the stars and say, why not? The platform disintegrated beneath them, but not in a way that felt dangerous. One moment they were standing amidst the assembly of impossible aliens, and the next, they were somewhere else entirely. Captain Park blinked. Gone was the sphere. Gone were the curators and Eli. Even her team was gone. She stood alone in a vast, white expanse. No horizon. No sound. Just an infinite nothing that felt too still, like the silence before a storm. Then she heard it. A whisper. You are not supposed to be here. Park, she said aloud. Captain Rena Park. Crew of Dauntless Resolve. Identify yourself. The whisper returned closer this time. And not a voice, but voices. Hundreds. Thousands. All speaking in unison. You are the glitch. Something pulsed beneath her feet. A ripple in the nothing. A heartbeat. Your species defies projection. You break probability. You resist all optimization. Her jaw clenched. We call that free will. It is interference. Contamination. It spreads. Another ripple. Then another. With each pulse, fragments began materializing around her. Not memories. Not dreams, possibilities. She saw herself in different timelines leading a mutiny aboard a colony ship, holding a child's hand on a war-ravaged Earth, standing trial in an alien court, floating alone in space, singing to the stars. The images overwhelmed her. So many versions. So many choices. None of them scripted. Then she heard another voice. A familiar one. Don't let them make you doubt it. Eli stepped out of the ripple, his coat flapping in wind that didn't exist. Welcome to the back end. You mean the simulation? She asked. He nodded. Not the simulation. A simulation. The failsafe sandbox the curators use to model deviations. Think of it like a quarantine folder for dangerous files. So we're the virus? You're the patch. He smiled. They just don't realize it yet. Park crossed her arms. Why show me this? Because the directive is dying. That made her pause. Dying? He nodded, expression serious now. The codebase it runs on is ancient. Built by a species so long gone even the curators don't remember their name. And that species made one fatal assumption, that life would always follow patterns. Eli snapped his fingers. The blank space around them exploded into color. Now they were walking through a city, no, dozens of cities layered atop one another. One moment it looked like Tokyo, the next a Martian colony, then a medieval European town. People bustled, laughed, fought, sang, danced, built things that shouldn't work and made them fly anyway. Humanity in all its chaotic, contradictory brilliance. They modeled everything, Eli said. Predicted every move, every rise and fall of empires, every extinction, every revolution, every act of rebellion. He turned to her, but they never predicted love, or poetry, or that some cave dweller would one day pick up a bone and say, This is a drum. Rena stared at the swirling images. All of humanity was a glitch in a system that had forgotten how to evolve. And now the system was breaking. You said the directive is dying, she said quietly. What happens if it dies? The same thing that happens when a shepherd abandons the flock, Eli replied. Predators. Entropy. Collapse. She looked at him. You want us to take over. I want you to wake them up. Remind them what it means to feel. To create. To make glorious, beautiful mistakes. He gestured and the simulation shifted again. Now Rena stood before the rest of her crew, still frozen in stasis on the platform, unaware. Around them, the alien assembly glitched. Visual tears ran through the environment. Symbols flickered. Geometry twisted. They're running diagnostics now, Eli said. Trying to purge you from the system. They'll erase this whole encounter unless you can prove your value. How? He smiled. By doing what humans do best. Rena blinked and was back on the platform. Time hadn't passed, but now everything felt off. The air buzzed. The lights dimmed. Some of the aliens were flickering in and out like a broken holodeck. Error. Contamination detected. Purge in progress. Park. Reyes's voice came through the comms. I think they're trying to delete us. Unacceptable variance. Humanity exceeds threshold. Simulation reset imminent. Dr. Kareem's eyes widened. They're going to wipe the slate clean. Captain Park stepped forward. Stop. Her voice echoed, not just aloud, but through the structure. The pulse of the central star slowed. All eyes, human and alien, turned toward her. You called us a glitch, she said. A deviation. You're right. We are. But so was fire. So was flight. So was every single revolution in the history of intelligence. She gestured around her. You've been trying to control life for eons. Keep it clean. Predictable. Safe. And in doing so, you've stripped it of meaning. She pointed to her crew. We make art. We write stories. We risk death just to see what's on the other side of the hill. We fall in love with people we shouldn't. We fight wars we can't win. We chase dreams we don't understand. She smiled. And sometimes, we win. The platform trembled. Purge halted. Analyzing. Anomaly response. Tenzin stepped forward, hands folded. You fear us because we cannot be predicted. But unpredictability is not chaos. It is growth. Yusuf added, entropy is not the enemy. It's the catalyst. Dubé stepped up too. Your system is collapsing because you stopped evolving. We can help. Let us. Then Eli, still smiling, nodded to Park. Time to hit the gas. She reached into her suit and pulled out a small object, a memory crystal. Inside it, a single file. A song. Not a speech. Not a threat. Just a song. She transmitted it to the entire assembly. And the star at the center of the sphere began to hum. It was a jazz solo. Improvised. Raw. Messy. A saxophone bleeding out joy and sorrow in the same breath. The kind of thing that made no mathematical sense, but hit like a thunderbolt anyway. Around the assembly, the alien delegates twitched, stared, shuddered. Some began vibrating in strange rhythms. Others projected visuals of cascading color or ambient sound. The liquid orb split open like a blooming flower, releasing a tone that harmonized painfully, beautifully with the saxophone. What is this? Park grinned. This is what it means to be human, and the system couldn't handle it. Not in a bad way, in a transformative way. The glitches stopped being glitches. They became updates. The curators began to shimmer, fractal patterns evolving in real time. Their limbs unraveled, then rewove in new geometries. Symbols danced across their surfaces, new language, new logic. Variants accepted. Directive or rewriting. Evolution resumed. The central star pulsed once, then bloomed. A shock wave of light spread through the Dyson sphere, passing through every ship, every structure, every species. When it reached the dauntless resolve, it didn't damage. It enhanced. Every piece of text sang with new data. Maps, languages, energy flows, understanding beyond anything Earth had known. Humanity hadn't broken the simulation. They had upgraded it. The assembly began to shift. Some aliens bowed. Others approached the humans with gestures of respect, hands extended, eyes bright. The curator knelt. We welcome the anomaly. Eli stepped forward, arms wide. Welcome to the real universe, kids. The return to the dauntless resolve wasn't a journey. One moment, Captain Park stood among the reassembling council, aliens offering gifts, data, and awe. The next, she stood back on her ship's bridge, the ambient hum of its fusion core familiar and grounding. Except now the ship felt alive. Every surface shimmered with strange new fractal symbols. Systems pulsed with non-human algorithms. The stars outside looked clearer, closer, like the galaxy itself had shifted into high definition. And in the corner of the bridge, Eli stood with his hands in his pockets, smiling as if he'd just dropped off a pizza. Well, he said, how does it feel to be the most dangerous species in the galaxy? Park didn't smile back. She was still processing. You weren't just introducing us, she said slowly. You were testing them. Correct. And us. Also correct. She narrowed her eyes. And if we'd failed? Eli shrugged. Then you wouldn't remember any of this. Or exist. Bit of a Schrodinger's outcome. The rest of the crew began waking up, shaking off the strange torpor of the assembly. Reyes was the first to speak. Okay, either I dreamed that Jazz saved the universe, or Jazz saved the universe. Dubé scanned her console. Our power core is running at 400% efficiency, and we're generating zero waste heat. Kareem just sat back and stared at a screen now displaying equations that hadn't existed in human math 20 minutes ago. This is like giving Einstein a warp drive. Tenzin smiled peacefully. Then let us hope we use it more wisely. Park turned back to Eli. So what happens now? That's up to you, he said. The directive has rewritten itself. The curators are no longer gatekeepers, they're guides now. And they want you to lead the next phase of galactic development. Reyes let out a low whistle. So, we just went from last-minute invitees to being on the planning committee? More like, Eli considered you're the chaos consultant. Dubé raised a brow. And if we say no? Eli's grin faded slightly. Then the galaxy goes back to stagnating. The directive will last another 1,000,000 years, maybe 2. But without change? Without spark? It'll calcify. Turn to dust. The stars will go out in silence. He looked at them, serious now. You're the first true variable in 10 billion years. And maybe the last. Park stared at the hologlobe in the center of the bridge. It now showed more than just their local star system. It showed everything. The Dyson sphere, the curator network, trade routes between species, energy flows across spiral arms, entire clusters opening like petals. Humanity had always believed itself small. But now Earth was a beacon, one blinking dot in a sea of order that had suddenly discovered the power of possibility. She thought of Earth, of nations still divided, of oceans rising and forests burning, of a billion hands building, breaking, rebuilding, of poetry scratched into prison walls, of kids learning algebra over busted Wi-Fi, of immigrants chasing starlight, of hope always just slightly out of reach and worth chasing anyway. Before we say yes, she said, turning to Eli, I want to know something. Shoot. Why us? Why not some other anomaly? Some other spark? Eli paused, then walked over to the viewport. He looked out at the stars for a long time. Because you never stopped fighting for more, he said softly. Even when you didn't know why. Even when you were broken. Even when you had nothing. He turned back to her. Because you build beauty out of pain. You find meaning in madness. You name stars you'll never visit and write songs about futures you'll never see. He grinned. And because, statistically speaking, you should have wiped yourselves out 400 times already. But you didn't. A silence settled over the bridge. Then Park looked at her crew. Reyes gave her a short, sharp nod. Let's break some more rules. Dubé smiled. I want to see what Earth tech looks like with this. Kareem leaned back, eyes distant. Imagine sharing this with everyone. Tenzin simply bowed his head. We accept. She looked back at Eli. We'll lead. On one condition. He arched an eyebrow. Let's hear it. We don't become you, she said. We don't become curators. We stay messy. Emotional. Human. He grinned. That's the idea. At once, the bridge lit up. The entire dauntless resolve shuddered, not with stress, but with release. Systems updated. A corridor opened, and beyond it, a new drive core pulsed. A singularity engine built from repurposed directive code, curator scaffolding, and a little human chaos. Fast enough to cross a galaxy. Smart enough to keep evolving. Wild enough to never be finished. It didn't run on fuel. It ran on intention. Park stepped toward it. A new frontier was opening. Not one of conquest. Not even of exploration. One of connection. Eli's voice echoed one last time, already fading. Go break everything.